All right, it's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers. Welcome back to yet another video. This one is on Active Reconnaissance, and this is also another free room that's available at TryHackMe. If you wanted to get access to the paid rooms and all the extra dope stuff, you can get yourself a subscription using the link in the description below, and you'll go ahead and get access to all their virtual machines and attack boxes and yada yada yada, all that good shit. And of course, if you just want to follow along in the videos, you're more than welcome to do that as well. And you can like and subscribe and turn on that notification bell so that you get notified the next time that we drop a video. And this is a part of the PenTest Plus pathway inside TryHackMe. The last video that we did was on passive reconnaissance, and today we're going to be talking about active reconnaissance. And so, as the introduction, just a quick overview, right? So, passive recon is something that does not show up on network detection or any of the intrusion defense appliances or anything like that. Active recon does, right? So when you ping something, it shows up on their system that you're trying to ping them. When you do Traceroute or Telnet or Netcat, any of these things, it shows up as an attempt to do recon against their systems, and then they'll either flag your IP address or they will block your IP address. So it's important to understand that when you move from passive recon to active recon, you are now going into the world of detection. You will be detected. And it's important to understand that. So if you're going to do it, which I'm not saying you should only do it in a controlled environment or if a client hires you or something like that. But if you're going to do it when you're not supposed to, please use a proxy chain or something to protect your IP address. Because I've done things that I should not do. and they block my IP address. So I'm speaking from experience here when I tell you to do these things with permission. Otherwise, your IP address gets reported and blocked and all that crap. So here we go. The web browser is actually one of the best ways to do active recon on something. And I think this technically doesn't even show up really. So on the transport level, the browser connects to either port 80 by HTTP or 443 by HTTPS, which is the secured version of HTTP. And since both of those are default ports, then the web browser doesn't show them in the address bar. However, it's possible to use custom ports to access the service. For instance, this is the local IP for most machines, most instances, and then you have 8834. It'll connect to the local host on port 8834 via HTTPS protocol. If there's an HTTPS server listening on that port, we are going to receive a web page. While browsing a web page, you can press Control-Shift-I or Option-Command-I. So if you're on a Windows machine, that's what it is. Option-Command-I is on Mac or I think Linux maybe even, to open web developer tools, or you can always just click on the page and then do inspect, and it will open that up in the corner like this, and then you can get access to everything that they're talking about in this example. For example, I think it's called the debugger. Is it the debugger here? No, debugger I think is only for Firefox. Yeah, so debugger is for Firefox. Chrome tools, DevTools is very similar, but it's named differently. So either way, you can do all of these things and get access to the same things. And I think, is it console? What is it? Sources. There you go. It's not debugger in Chrome, it's sources. Whoops, zoom back out. On Chrome, it's sources. On Firefox, it's the debugger. And it shows you all of this information that's running in the background as you're looking at whatever browser or whatever website you're on. So all of these things are actually available. Let me see if I can do this. All of these things are currently available in this browser that I'm on with this page that I'm on, right? So it's important to understand that all of this stuff is actually at your fingertips, and then you can click through all these things. And if you know how to read this type of stuff, so if you know how to read a JS document, and if you know how to read this type of code right here, then you will probably know kind of what the vulnerabilities may be, what you can use to exploit this system, so on and so forth. The JS version is here, and their analytics hosts are here. There's a lot of stuff that's just on this publicly accessible data that you can use simply by just going into the inspect, or they call the developer tools for your web browser, right? And so there are also, I'm just going to close this just to give our window a little bit more room. There are also plenty of add-ons for Firefox and Chrome that help in penetration testing. Foxy Proxy we used when we were doing the Burp Suite room, so it also mentions it over here. It's convenient when you're using something like that, and then you can get it for Firefox. Unfortunately, it's not available for Chrome. And then there's User Agent Switcher and Manager, which is the ability to pretend to be accessing the web page from a different operating system or different web browser. In other words, you can pretend to be browsing a site from an iPhone when in fact you're on Mozilla Firefox, right? You can download User Agent Switcher for Firefox here. It's kind of annoying that these things are limited to Firefox and they don't have a good one for Chrome. And then there's Wapalizer, which is basically a website that you can go to and run a query, and then it'll show you what they're using for their analytics, for their CMS, their operating system, their marketing automation or autoresponders, databases, all of these other things, right? It's available through Wapalizer, which is just a website. But then there's also the extension that you can add to Firefox, because they only have the limitation on Firefox. Jesus. Okay, so browse to the following website and then ensure that you have opened your developer tools or on the attack box on, Firefox, or on the browser from your computer. Using developer tools, figure out the total number of questions. So if we go here, and if we do inspect, and if we do head, just open that up. There's nothing here. Open that up. There's nothing there. Open this up. Let's see. There's Alice Bubble. And let's just keep open this up and see what else is here. There is 3 answers. Okay. And let's see. Oh, there's more information. Okay. Incorrect answer. 3 answers. Main title. Main bubble. 3 answers from Bob. And you just keep clicking. Okay, so the information is not here. So I'm going to click on sources. And let's see what information we can find here. Okay, so it's inside the sources tab. If you're on Chrome, it's inside the sources tab. And then script.js is the file that we're looking for. And right here it actually says it. So can I kind of shrink that down? We can expand this. So there you go. So there we go, right? Step 1, questions. And the questions are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We have 8 questions here. And that kind of just tells you. Wait, let's zoom out. And that's basically it, right? As simple as looking at all the files that are available for this particular website, clicking around, and then you have all these different things, and then script happens to be the script, which is probably the conversation is what they're referring to, right? Okay, so there we go, we got that. And now we can do ping. So we can move on from that little web browser view to the ping concept. And so ping is just as simple as doing ping against the machine IP or ping against the host name, and then you'll start getting responses like this if the service is up, if the machine is up, right? If the machine is not up, you're not going to get any of this stuff. It's just going to kind of hang there. And from this situation, we said that we want to count until 5. That's why there's only 5 packets, and then it finished. But if you don't specify this, if you just do ping and then the IP address, is just going to keep going. If the machine is up, it's just going to keep going, keep going, keep going. So you can specify how many of them you want to return, right? So Control C, and this is both in Mac and Windows, Control C forces any operation that's running inside your terminal to stop. So if you want to do just 10 pings, you would do count 10, and then this is equivalent to doing N, which is on a Microsoft Windows system. So I guess -C is for Mac and Linux, and then -N is for Windows, but it does the same thing. It just, this is number 10 probably, and then this is count 10. And so it only gives you 10 ping responses. and then it gives you the total time that the whole thing was done. We've transmitted 5 packets. We received 5 replies. We noticed that on average it took 0.475 milliseconds, uh, which is, where is it? Oh, this is the average. So this would be the total that came back, and it'll give us some kind of an average at some point right here, right here. So minimum, average, maximum, and then MDEV. I don't know what that means, but this is the average. So the 0.475 milliseconds, with the maximum being right here, right? So from a penetration testing point of view, we'll try to discover more about the target. We'll learn as much as possible. For example, which ports are open and which services are running. So let's consider the following. We shut down the target virtual machine and tried to ping this thing. As you would expect in the following example, we didn't receive anything. And in this situation, there it is. Destination host unreachable. So you didn't get anything back, right? And that's basically the difference in the response. So which option would you use to set the size of the data? And so this is not available here, but what we can do is open up split view, and then we could do man ping, just like we did in the other ones. So let me clear the screen here. I'm gonna do man ping, and it should be something here that allows you to set the size. So if we kind of go through all the commands that we have available, there should be something that allows us to set the size. And there we go. Dash S, a lowercase s, allows you to set the packet size. And then what is the next question? What is the size of the ICMP header in bytes? Okay, cool. So we find that information under the ICMP packet details in the manual of ping, and it says it right here. So it says the ICMP request packet contains an additional 8 bytes worth of header, followed by an arbitrary amount of data, and that is our answer here. What is the size of the ICMP header in bytes? So does Microsoft Windows Firewall block ping by default? And the answer seems to be yes, and it's basically because it's right here. It's actually in the description of the task itself. So it says firewall is configured to block such packets. The firewall might be a piece of software running on the system. Note that MS Windows Firewall blocks ping by default. So there's that. And then we have deploy the VM, and using the attack box, issue the command ping C10. How many ping replies did you get back? We should get 10 because it says count 10, but let's run it anyways, just for the hell of it. Ping C10, and then 10, 10, 117, 66. There we go. One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And it says 10 packets transmitted, 10 received, and so there we go. 0 packet lost. And let's zoom back out, and we should have gotten back 10, which is the exact response. So here we go. So now the next one is Traceroute, and the easiest way I can explain this without reading through all of this, and we might need to read all of this later on when we come back to kind of answer some of the questions, but I mean, this is a free room, so you could just go read through all of this if you want to. But as the name suggests, Traceroute command traces the route taken by the packets from your system to get to another host. So this is what it looks like over here, right? So this host sends the packets, and it can go through all of these things to get to this particular server. And it looks like in this thing it did 4 hops, and so it came back with 4 hops, right? It'll say that it got that many hops to actually get to this thing. And it shows us the process right here. So hop 1, hop 2, hop 3, and hop 4, right? However, if the TTL reaches 0, it'll be dropped, and an ICMP timeline to live exceeded could be sent to the original. And so this is what we get as our original kind of response, right? So this is what the important part of this. So it says, it leaves the system with a TTL value of 64, so the packet will leave with 64, and it'll reach the target system with a TTL value of 60, meaning it's gone through 4 routers. For each hop, it'll lose 1 TTL value. So TTL 64, 63, 62, 61, and by the time that it lands, it'll be TTL 60. And that's how we can determine that it took 4 hops. But then when you actually see the results, it'll also just show you the number of hops that it took, so that you can kind of get an understanding. And so in this particular situation, it came back and it has a TTL of 1, meaning that it probably went through 63 hops, right? So if it reaches 0, it'll be dropped, and ICMP time to live exceeded would be sent to the original sender. In the following figure, the TTL is the system set TTL to 1 before sending it to the router. The first router on the path decrements the TTL by 1, resulting in 0. Consequently, this router will discard the packet and send an ICMP time exceeded in transit error message. Note that some routers are configured not to send any messages when discarding a packet. So maybe that's what happened instead of my assumption of the thing. And so that's the case right here, right? On Linux, Traceroute will start by sending UDP datagrams with IP packets of TTL being 1. Thus, it causes the first router to encounter TTL 0 and send an ICMP time to live exceeded back. Hence, a TTL of 1 will reveal the IP address of the first router to you. Then it will send another packet with TTL 2, and this will be dropped at the second router, and so on. In the following example, we follow the same command. We run the same command, which is this. From TryHackMe's attack box, we notice that that different runs might lead to different routes taken by the packet, meaning that if you run it multiple times, you'll get different routes taken to get to the packet. And so this was the first one, this is the second one, so on and so forth, and it came back with 14, right? So we have numbered 14 lines. Each line represents 1 hop. Our system sends 3 packets with TTL set to 1, then 3 packets with set to 2, and so forth. Depending on the network topology, we might get replies from up to 3 different routers, depending on the route taken by the packet. Consider line number 12, which is right here. So it went from here, and this is it. And it seems like it didn't do anything, right? So let's see what it actually says. The 12th router with the listed IP address has dropped the packet 3 times and sent an ICMP exceeded in transit message. The line, this, and then 1, 2, and 3 shows the times in milliseconds for each reply to reach our system. On the other hand, on the third line, we see that it received a single reply on the third line. 2 stars in the output, which is 1 right here and 1 at the end, indicate that our system didn't receive 2 expected ICMP time exceeded transit messages. Finally, in the first line, we can see that the packet receiving the attack box took different routes. We can see 2 routers that responded to TTL being 1. Our system never received the third expected ICMP message. And so right here, this is the first one at that address, and it goes for 1.47 milliseconds. And then this is the second one for 9 milliseconds. In the second run, excuse me, I was reading the incorrect set, my apologies. This is the correct thing, but I mean, it's the same thing. So it gave back the same data, essentially, I think. And so this is the second run. So in the second run, let's go here to analyze that. In the second run, we noticed that the packets took a longer route this time, passing through 26 routers. If you're running a trace route to a system within your network, the trace route will be unlikely to change. However, we cannot expect the route to remain fixed when the packets need to go via other routers inside the network. To summarize, we notice the following. The number of hops between your system and the target system depends on the time you are running the trace route. There's no guarantee that your packets will follow the same route, even if you're on the same network or you repeat the traceroute command within a short period of time. Some routers return a public address. You might examine a few of these routers based on the scope of the intended penetration test. Some routers don't return a reply. So in traceroute A, what is the IP address of the last router hop before reaching TryHackMe, which is what we got here. So if we go up here, we can just kind of analyze that right here. And this is the last router. So number 14, was the last router, and it returned the hop. And then on Traceroute B, what is the IP of the last? And it's right here. Okay, on Traceroute B, how many routers are between the two systems? Obviously, it's 26 because it took 26 hops. And now start the attached VM from task 3 if it's not already started. And let's run Traceroute 10. Wait, what did I just do? Traceroute 10, 10, 117, 66. I did traceroute 10, 10, 117, 66. And it took one hop. Check how many routers hops between the attack box and the target VM. It literally took one hop. So we're not supposed to give them a response because it probably changes every single time. But that was it. So let's run it again. And it took another one hop. So I mean, that's basically it. It took one hop. And that's it for the traceroute exercise. So the next one is Telnet. Telnet runs on port 21, and or excuse me, 21 is FTP, my apologies, 23 is Telnet. So Telnet is teletype network developed in 1969. It operates based on text, and it should say that in the description right here, but it's basically plain text, right? So using the Telnet protocol for remote administration, the default port is 23. From a security perspective, it sends all the data, including username and password, in clear text. There we go. Sending in clear text makes it easy for anyone who has access to the communication channel to steal the login credentials. Secure alternative is SSH, which runs on port 22. The Telnet client, with the simplicity, can be used for other purposes. Knowing that the Telnet client relies on the TCP protocol, you can use Telnet to connect to any service and grab its banner. Using Telnet and then on the port, you can connect to any device running on TCP and even exchange a few messages unless it uses encryption, right? So let's say we want to discover more information about a web server on port 80. We connect to the server at port 80, then we communicate using HTTP. You don't need to dive into HTTP. You just need to get this command. To specify something other than the default index page, you can get this command, which will request the page HTML. And then we can also specify to the remote web server that we want to use version 1.1 for the communication. To get a valid response instead of an error, you need to input some value for the host, example this, and hit enter twice. Executing these steps will provide the requested index page. So you do telnet, the IP address, port 80. Then it tries to connect, and it tried to connect to yada yada, and then it gave back this as a response. Excuse me. And then HTTP 1.1 got a 200 response, which is all good. The server came back as this, which is information that we can use for further recon and vulnerability analysis. And what else did we get? The ETAG, and then connection is keep alive, and it can accept bytes, right? So of particular interest is the installed web server, Nginx. And in this example, we communicated with the web server, so we used basic HTTP commands. If we connect to a mail server, we need to use proper commands based on the protocol, such as SMTP and POP3. So start the attached machine. If it's not clearly already started, open the terminal, use Telnet to connect to VM on port 80. What is the name of the server? And I mean, it gave it back to us, but let's just run it anyway. Why not? We already have the information. So Telnet, and then 10, 10, 117, 66, and we want to use port 80. There you go. Okay, so the connection was closed. It could very well be that we ran out of time, so I'm just going to add, it says before you can extend your time, you got to wait until it gets less than an hour. So is the IP address correct? It is correct. And it told us to connect on port 80 using Telnet. So I'm going to try it one more time, and let's see what happens here. Okay, so I restarted the machine mainly because I got 2 error messages here saying that it couldn't connect. So let's try it again on the new IP address and see if it'll actually connect for us. And it's weird because both times it did say that it was connected. It just dropped the connection. It closed the connection by foreign host. So let's see maybe if this will work this time around. Okay, so I kind of cheated. I know we were supposed to use Telnet to do this, but I did a scan with Nmap real quick just to see if the freaking thing was up and if it was actually working. And so Nmap on the IP address gave us that port 80 is open and it's using HTTP. And if you use Nmap with -S capital V, it'll give you the version of whatever is running on it, which is Apache 2.4.10. So that's the answer. And so I had to kind of take a detour to try to find the answer, but it should have worked just running Telnet, because that's literally the whole purpose of this exercise, is to try to run Telnet to try to get this response. So I'm kind of upset that it didn't work just running Telnet, but I wanted to give you, I guess, an alternate route to try to find this information. And we're going to do Nmap and all that stuff. There's dedicated rooms for Nmap, so you can kind of learn that information yourself. But, you know, neither here nor there, I guess. So we at least got the information that we needed to answer these questions. And now you have two versions of getting that answer. Is one of them would be Telnet. And if Telnet works for you when you're running this, maybe it's because I already answered these questions that it was doing that. So maybe when you actually go into this free room and you run these exercises for yourself, it won't give you that issue, and you can actually get the response and give you the answer, so on and so forth. But because I have finished it, maybe that's the reason why it's not doing it. So I am going to move on to the next one, which is, I think, the last one, it seems. And so first we're going to terminate this machine and we're going to start this machine, which is the Netcat exercise. So it says simply Netcat or Netcat simply NC has different applications that can be of great value. And one of them could be a listener. The other one could be connector, right? So you can support both TCP and UDP protocols. It can function as a client that connects to a listening port, or it can act as a server that listens on a port of your choice, right? So it's a convenient tool that you can use as a simple client or server over TCP or UDP. First, you can connect to a server as you did with Telnet to collect its banner using the NC, the machine IP, and then whatever port you want to connect to, which is quite similar to the previous exercise, except the previous exercise didn't work. So note that you might need to press Shift-Enter after the get line to actually make it run. So we'll see how that works when we run the exercise. Here's our IP address. So let me run that before I move on to the next thing. So I'm going to clear, and then we're going to run NC 1010 224.19 on port 80. Shift-Enter or Enter. Okay, while that tries to run, I'm going to read the rest of this information. I really am truly wondering if it's because I've already completed these exercises that I'm not getting the immediate response from this, or maybe some of the glitches that I'm getting. But so you use the netcat command to connect to the IP using whatever the port is. Then you issue a get for the default page, including this. We're specifying to the target server that our client supports HTTP 1.1. Finally, we need to give a name to our host. So we added a new line, host netcat. You can name your host anything, as it has no impact. So based on the output, the server was received, and we can tell that on port 80, we have Nginx version of that listening for incoming connections. You can use netcat to listen on a port and connect to a listening port on any other system. And the command is typically where you want to open a port and listen to it, you do nc. And we've done this a lot when we're doing reverse shells or trying to create reverse shells. You do netcat to create a listener on whatever the port is, and then from that you would get your response. So instead of doing -v -l -n -p, you could just do this. VNLP with 1 dash and then whatever the port number is that you want to listen to. And this is, it was covered in the Linux room. And so it goes like this, right? So verbose output is for V, N is for numeric only, so no resolution of host names via the DNS. P is to specify the port number, and L would be listen mode. And you could do LP, NV, VNLP. There's a lot of different versions of this that you can do, and that's pretty much it. So VV would make it very verbose. Dash K is keep listening after the client disconnects. And so some notes for you to keep in mind is that P should appear just before the port number you want to listen on, and N will avoid DNS lookups and warnings. So if you don't want to avoid DNS lookups, don't use N, because N will actually avoid DNS lookups. And we've had to do that on several exercises as well. So port numbers less than 1024 require root privileges to listen on. And on the client side, you would issue NC that port number, and so it would be like that. So so that's an example of NC to echo. After you successfully establish a connection to the server, whatever you type on the client side will be echoed on the server side and vice versa. So it's basically like having a shell. Consider the following example. On the server side, we will listen on port 1234, and then we do this by using that command, same thing, basically the same thing. In our case, the listening server has an IP address 10.10.224.19, so we can connect to it from the client side by using that on port 1234, basically. Very, very simple to do. And then so on one side you're listening, on one side you're connecting. That's it. This setup would echo whatever you type on one side to the other side of the tunnel, and you can find a recording of the process below. And so to be clear, on this side you would do the typing, and on this side it would show up on the other side, because I don't think you can do it vice versa. And I would show you if the freaking thing would allow me to do it. But so start the VM and open the attack box. On the attack box, once the attack box loads, use Netcat to connect to port 21. What is the version of the running server? So this thing is still flicking running, so we're gonna cancel that out. So Netcat 10.10.224.19 on port 21. Let's see if that works. Well, that did. See, instantly it worked. So I wonder what the hell's going on. Anyway, whatever, man. So what do we got? Version 6.4, Linux FTPD 0.17. So what is the version of the running server? It's that Linux file transfer protocol D 0.17, and that is ready. And so now it's connected, and we can close that out. Okay, so putting it all together, let's see what we got. Do we have an exercise here? We don't. It's just giving us the list of the commands and what we can potentially use. So here we go. We used Traceroute, Ping, Telnet, and Nmap. See, it kind of already talks about it as the future room. So Ping does the ping. On Linux or Mac OS, it'll do -C. On Windows, it'll do -N. And that's basically the number of pings you want to do, so that it'll stop after the 10 pings. Traceroute, very simple command, and you just run it on either Linux or Mac. TraceRT is the version on Windows. And then you have Telnet, that just connects to whichever one, and I think that applies to both Windows and Mac. And then you have Netcat as the client, meaning that you want to connect to a server, and then Netcat as a server, meaning you want to be listening. Okay, so this is very important. As a client, you're trying to connect. As a server, you are listening. And although these are fundamental tools, they're readily available on most systems, and in particular, a web browser installed on practically every computer and smartphone. It can be an essential tool in your arsenal for conducting reconnaissance without raising alarms. If you want to gain more profound knowledge on the developer tools, we recommend the Walking an Application Room. And I know for a fact that I've done that already. And so these are just the commands on the developer tools shortcut. You can always just do connect or right click and then do inspect, which I've zoomed out of the screen So let me just do that, and then right click, and then you do inspect, which is the very, very last option. And that's both, and most browsers allow you to do that. And that's pretty much it. Either that, or you could just do the keyboard shortcut where it's Control-Shift-I or Option-Command-I, and it'll give you the inspect option that shows you everything on the browser. So that's pretty much it for our Active Reconnaissance. This was also, I think, a short room, and there's the walking and application. Let's see if this is a free room. This is also a free room. So what just happened? I'm just going to close that because it zoomed in too much. So if I exit split view and then try to click that open again one more time, it'll give you that. Okay, so there you go. So this is the walking in application that basically shows you how to use the developer tools, right? So viewing the page source, exploring the website, and developer tools, inspector, debugger, network, and there's a bunch of other things that show up under developer tools. But this is also a free room, and I highly recommend that you go through it as well. There was something really interesting that I learned how to do actually because of this room, and I'm not going to say what website it was and what I did exactly, but there is a way that there's a lot of websites that lock content unless you are subscribed or unless you turn off your ad blocker or something like that, right? So there's a way, and it'll show you in this room, so I'm not going to give it away, and I want you to go do this room. There's a way that you can bypass the pop-up that locks the content on the screen through your developer tools. So it's literally, and it was one of the first times that I was like, oh man, this stuff actually really works. And I went to a very well-known website. The hint is that it's a news website, and they always lock their content for subscribers, and you can't read the article unless you're subscribed or unless you do certain things. So, and I was like, dude, F these guys. So I went from this room and I learned how to bypass that, and I got access to the article that was on the screen. I was like, this is amazing. So this is a very, very useful room. And I mean, everything on TryHackMe is super useful in my opinion. So definitely take advantage of the free rooms. If you want to get the paid stuff, go ahead and click the link in the description below, and you will get a discount on your paid membership, and get to hacking, get to penetration testing and cybersecurity analysis and all of that good shit. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers. Make sure that you like, subscribe, share, comment, turn on the notification bell. Do whatever it takes to follow this channel, because we're going to keep putting out awesome in-depth videos so that you get access to all the information that's available through TryHackMe. And just to give you kind of like a heads up for the super into the future, once I'm done with all of the modules on TryHackMe, which by the way, there's a lot of them. I'm like barely scratching the surface. Just to kind of give you an idea, this is my skills matrix as to all the things that I've developed and all the stuff that I'm learning. And so you can tell the only thing that I'm 100% on is my fundamentals, and there's a lot of other things that are available in the future. But to give you even a further view on what's available, when you go into the Learn section of TryHackMe, all of these rooms are available. And the intro stuff is what I finished, like the beginner stuff is what I finished. Everything else, I'm barely even touching. I haven't touched SOC Level 2, I haven't finished Cyber Defense, Junior Pentester, Red Teaming, all of these things, right? So this is a very robust knowledge base, and there's a lot of great stuff. And of course, there's specific modules attached to specific tactics. And so you can go to the Red Team Fundamentals, and it'll open up these things. And I've only done a couple of those stuffs because I think it was only available as a free room when I initially started. And then I was like, okay, well, I definitely need to learn more. And so there's the Red Team Intel room, and oh man, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but there's a lot of stuff, you guys. And until I'm done with all of these things, we're going to be doing YouTube videos on everything TryHackMe. And by that time, I will be super primed and ready to take my ethical hacker examination. And then from there, we're going to start doing some really crazy exercises and some really advanced videos on hacking and everything like that. So it would be nice to have you go through these videos with me and to go through this learning curve with me, so that by the time that I'm done, you will also be super primed and ready to do the advanced hacking techniques. So that's kind of the purpose of this channel. I know that I probably should have released that super early on when we did the first video or something, but I just dove head first and I just wanted to kind of share all of these things with you. So definitely make sure that you subscribe, like, share, turn on the notification bell, all that stuff, so you keep getting these videos and we follow along this path together. If nobody else loves you, I love you. It's your boy Hank Hackerson at Hank Hacks Hackers, and I will see you in the next video.